You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, and this is the opposition view, the second one this week after that superb victory away at Tottenham Hotspur. I'm joined by Sunsport journalist, huge Fulham fan, Izzy Barker, not for the first time on the We Are West Ham podcast, but it's been a while. Izzy, great having you with us. I forgot my pod mic at home, so I'm going to be echoey as hell. So I'm basically going to be relying on you to do as much talking as possible so people can bear to listen and watch this on YouTube.
I know how much you like having me on because I feel like every time I've been on, I've been ridiculed after a West Ham win or something. I think you have to go back to about 2013-14 for a Fulham win over West Ham in the league, I believe. So I know how much you like having me on.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Yeah, you're a lucky charm. Look, West Ham are fresh off of a superb win away at Tottenham Hotspur. I don't want to hear luck or fluke or any words to that effect. But you guys absolutely put Nottingham Forest to the sword 5-0. The story after the game was very much Nottingham Forest led. Steve Cooper under pressure, Marinakis, the owner, throwing his lanyard in a bush after the game. And it seems to be one of them where no one's really going, well done, Fulham. Like, what a performance that you've pulled out the bag. Do you feel that a bit?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think what we're seeing is some quality signings finally kind of coming into their own and coming into fruition. You know, finally we're getting the goals. Obviously, the question on everyone's lips this season has been who's going to replace Alexander Mitrovic, and you know that had been so telling for so much of the season. But now we've got 11 goals in our last 3 games, and that's more than we've got for the rest of the season at the start. So I think you see Jimenez, Iwobi coming into their own, and it's the kind of that like Marco Silva effect that we're feeling because he does really seem to get the best out of players again. And just being able to get those goals again is huge for us. And we've had a bit of a defensive shake-up as well, which I'll go into. But yeah, really starting to actually kind of come into our own finally.
Yeah, well, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because I mean, Alex Iwobi, he became one of those sort of laughing stocks of the Premier League, didn't he? Really, and obviously Everton paid 40 odd million quid for him from Arsenal, and everyone was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And he looked pretty average at best.
Yeah,
and the Gooners, you guys are 12th now and 18 points. You're only 3 places behind us, which doesn't sound a lot, but 6 points. There is sort of a gap between us and Chelsea. We're 9th on 24, and then it's 5 points down to Chelsea in 10th, almost like 2 halves of the table, but not actually cut in half under 10th like they usually are. What would you say the Marco Silva effect there? Like, what is it he's doing? Because Raul Jimenez seems to be the shadow of his former self after his injury, the head injury, of course, for Wolves. He scored a couple the other night, but what's he doing, Silva? Is he bringing the best out of these players? Because I don't think, unlike seasons past with Mitrovic, you mentioned, Fulham have really got anyone in many other teams in the league and go, God, I wish I had that player playing for us.
Raul Polinia, thank you very much.
All right, yeah, Polinia. Yeah, fair enough.
Right, so the thing is, when every time I work with Fulham and I work with, like, I do an interview with a player and maybe they've signed a new deal, like Polinia signed a new deal along with Harrison Reed, and I said, why did you guys sign a new deal? Like, you know, staying at Fulham, like you say, Polinia obviously had the Bayern Munich interest and things like that, but they always put it down to Marco Silva. He's kind of like created this feel-good factor at the club again that we saw from the days of Roy Hodgson, which we haven't had since those days in around 2010 and things like that. And he just makes players feel loved again. We've seen it with Bernd Leno, we've seen it with Willian, we've seen it with Tim Ream. What he can do is kind of get the best out of players maybe in a later stage of their career, or maybe they've had to come over kind of a bad time at a club, maybe Pereira with Man United and things like that. He just makes them feel loved again. And we have to give Marco Silva, and that just gets confidence again. Because Raul Jimenez, not only has he kind of scored goals, but he scored a back heel against Nottingham Forest. And I think that's telling.
I'm like 4 yards out.
But still, I think it's telling of a player that's, you know, got confidence. It sounds so simplistic, but like, you know, a goal is kind of like a striker's currency, but, you know, confidence is what sees them through. And I think that's what we're seeing with Raul Jimenez, and that's all down to Marco Silva, which is what the players say every time you ask them.
Yeah. You had a 4-3 at Liverpool. Obviously, those sort of two decent goals at the end from Liverpool. You were 3-0 up on 86 minutes, and by 92 or 93, you were 4-3 down. Bit of a collapse there. Beat Wolves 3-2 in the game before. Not a million miles off Aston Villa and Fulham in games for that. Drawing away at Brighton. It seems that you've sort of won some of the games you would expect to win, and not been a million miles away from it. Is it fair to say that Fulham fans and you and the rest of them are looking up rather than down at this stage of the season?
I think that's a really good question, because probably up until these last 3 games, we were actually really worried, and we were kind of, a loss away from staring down the barrel of relegation. I think the Wolves game was a real turning point. I think at that point we could have been really close to the kind of danger zone, if you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this recent run has been really important. That's why I think this West Ham game is going to be really interesting for us to kind of see actually where we're at. If we could get a draw or a win, then okay, this squad is kind of, as I said, starting to kind of blossom, because we've had such a hangover from the summer and that transfer window, and losing the likes of Mitrovic and a few injuries here and there. But finally, I think some signings are kind of bedding in, and this part of the season has been crucial for us, I guess.
Yeah, peculiar. It's one of those seasons, and I think I'm guilty of it often, I think, with Fulham. And they're like right up in your face. Like when Mitrovic was playing, he got them in the headlines every week, right? And he got you further up the match of the day running order. And I sort of find, if you haven't got a player like that, which I don't think you have at the moment, really, I appreciate Palhinha, but it's one of them, when like your best players are holding midfielder, like we knew it with Declan Rice, like he never does anything highlights worthy. Do you know what I mean? Like Declan Rice never did. He never gets you on match of the day. He never gets you in the paper. It's like, oh yeah, resounding defensive display, like the amount of interceptions, right, or Palhinha or whatever. So I think I'm sort of guilty of going, oh yeah, Fulham are just there. They're like just existing. They're not going to go down. They haven't got anyone ripping up trees. They'll get the points they need to. They'll be in the Premier League next year, probably the year after that. Not do anything remarkable in all of that time. What's like the end goal this season?
Well, interestingly, I think to the fan base, what you said then, like just staying in the Premier League has been very important. I'm still kind of feeling that PTSD from being labelled this new kind of yo-yo club, and everyone forgetting that we were actually quite sustainable in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Roy Hodgson, but then we kind of yo-yoed from the Championship to the Premier League under the likes of Scott Parker. Ranieri came in and things like that. So actually being solid in the Premier League and being mid-table for someone like me is fine. Because I was at points where we would go to the Championship, then we'd go to the Premier League and we'd not win a game. And I thought, you know what? I'm fine being in the Championship. I'm fine seeing us win games and not get absolutely spanked 5-0 by City, So actually getting results in the Premier League and being mid-table, to me, I know it sounds very unambitious, but that is fine for now. And then I'd like to see, building to next season. And I think I keep mentioning it, but this season was always going to be different. Losing Mitrovic, who had been our main man for so many seasons, we were so set up to have that kind of striker. So us kind of recovering from that and hopefully building on next season and having this new system, maybe with Jimenez finally coming into his own again, we'll see. But just staying in the Premier League is fine for me and fine for my heart, to be honest.
Yeah. Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Look, talk to me about the game Sunday then. West Ham coming off of that victory against Tottenham. I think we had less than 30% possession, as I predicted. And the 2 goals, obviously you've got to be in the position, but very, very fortunate indeed. But a great win, hopefully one that will give us a bit of a sort of boost of confidence. I don't necessarily think we're lacking that, but we just need to find something from a football perspective. We've been getting results, but not in a very pleasing to watch, or it doesn't feel very sustainable fashion. What are you expecting style-wise from the game then? Sunday, 2:00, Craven Cottage.
Well, I think it's going to be what we saw in our last game, to be honest. I think it's interesting. Obviously, we've spoken about us getting the goals, but actually we're seeing more of this defensive kind of shake up with Fulham at the minute. Tim Ream's been such a stalwart for the club, but he's probably going to be out against West Ham, and Tosin comes in at that right centre back position. I guess it means we just pass out the back better, more pace. And that was really effective against Forest. I think they only had 3 shots. Not sure they actually had one on target. So I think we're going to see a similar kind of setup against West Ham. Tom Cairney maybe back in the middle. Actually, now we've got quite a few people to call on. We've got, Harry Wilson can come in for Willian or Pereira, and there's Tom Cairney's kind of one of those older players that Marco Silva seems to be getting the best out of again, scored against Forest, so he'll probably come in. But we've got a few options at the minute, so I'm quietly confident. But I don't feel like I can say West Ham are a bogey team, because I feel like in recent times West Ham have been higher up in the table, so I don't know if that counts as really a bogey team. But we never seem to get a very good result against West Ham.
No, you know what? It's funny. Fulham are one of those teams where I go, we'll be all right.
Yeah,
we'll be
you
fine.
just have it, don't you? And yeah, I mean, it's the opposite feeling for me, to be honest. And it's really annoying, because I love feeling smug with you, but I never really get that when it's Fulham against West Ham. So I'm gutted.
No, it's one of them, isn't it? Where it's like whenever we play like Brighton until this season, but like Brighton or Everton, I'm like, oh well, we've lost it. Like there's no point. Like we always lose to Everton. Like but then whenever we play Fulham, and we did get dicked by Villa this year, but regardless of how well Villa are playing, usually I'm like, oh well, yeah, we never lose to Fulham. We always beat them most of the time. We always beat Aston Villa. Like happy days done. So yeah, it's one of those things. To be honest, after I win at Tottenham the other night, I already feel like we're trending above where I expected us to be for this week. I said on the podcast for Tottenham, I'd take a point out this week. So
Are you going on Sunday?
No, I'm not. No. Again, I was sort of, when the window came for me to be able to potentially get a ticket, I wasn't sure if I was working and we weren't playing particularly well. So I was like, I don't know. It's a long way. Even though it's
not one of the opportunities to go to the best ground in the world.
But no, I'm not going. But yeah, sort of quietly confident, and I hope that win against Tottenham will give us a bit of a free hit scent, if you like, because that's how it feels like for me. Anything we get out of this game is a bonus.
Yeah.
But I would have been delighted with 4 points from this week. So even if we get a draw, I'll still be pleased. Look, it's been great having you on the show, mate. Just give us a quick score prediction before I let you go then for Sunday afternoon. I'm
going 3-1 to Fulham. Raul Jimenez getting 2.
I can absolutely tell your heart's not in that prediction.
I haven't taken my medication today.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it would just be classic David Moyes to dig 6 points out of a week like this when pressure was on him. So I'm going to say a 2-1 West Ham win, because we still can't keep a clean sheet for love nor money. So
I think that's
2-1. Yeah, 2-1 West Ham win. Jared Burden on the score sheet. Again, Izzy, absolutely brilliant having you with us on the We Are West Ham podcast, as always. Isabelle Barker there, Sun Sport journalist and big Fulham fan. Looking ahead to that game Sunday afternoon. West Ham away at Fulham. Thanks so much for listening or watching. Follow us on all the socials, the usual places at the Hammers, and we'll speak to you next week.